Hello everyone, and today we're taking a look at this giant book of battle maps by Loke BattleMats. 62 pages of battle maps for tabletop RPGs like Dungeons and Dragons. This is absolutely giant, and when I say giant, I mean this is A3 size. This is UK A4 size by comparison. Now they do different books of different sizes. They do an A4 sized book, which does actually meet up and connects to this if you would like to. A4 being 12 by 9 squares, and this one I believe being 12 by 16 squares. This is such a neat idea. It opens up. Speaking of that, I will open it up for you. This opens up, and the battle mat you can use either one side or two sides. Now I actually think this is a really neat idea. I cannot believe that nobody really thought about doing this sort of thing until now. It's really handy for dungeon masters or game masters who are on the go. So I think this is a really handy tool to be able to take your battle maps to a location outside of where you keep your collection and whatnot. There's the seal broken, and it's going to save you a ton of space. Now I don't think this will be a replacement for all of your battle maps or your dungeon tiles or whatever you use, but I do think this will be a good little accessory, especially for things like random encounters, where this can really save you a lot of space in your travel bags or what have you. Now, like I mentioned, they do different sizes of these books, Loke does. That is that they do different themes as well, and they do tend to connect if you would like to do that as well. I think in actual fact I may check out some of the other ones like the A4 one to save a little bit of space if I need to. But let's have a look at the different sections they have on the back here. Now I'll give you a better look at that. Those are all of the different styles included in this battle map. That being 32 different maps in total, but 62 if you count them as singular pages. These maps are also dry erase, and I will show that. I'll also show using a bit of scenery with these battle maps as well, so you can see what that will look like as we look through some of the pages here. But first, let's take a look at all of the pages of battle mats included here. So first we have a typical dungeon theme here. This is a great basic one for the interior of a dungeon, for a quick encounter if you will. You could also draw on this with dry erase as well, which would be something you could do, which is pretty cool. Next one is another kind of standard battle map, this being more of a texture or a desert if you will. So these are ones you could really add to with scenery. I'll show scenery used with this later in the review. And here is kind of a foresty path here. There's a little bit of ruins here. This could be a good camping spot. Like I mentioned before, you could use these singly as well, which is another way you could use these. I think that's a great use for these as well, to use them just like that. So I think that's a pretty good versatility there. So keep in mind that you could use these any which way like that. We'll take a look at the next one here, and we have a bridge over troubled water. Now like I mentioned, you could use these any which way you want. They don't have to be as they are used here. And Loke Battle Maps also does things like dungeon tiles as well, so they have a lot of versatility on offer that they are selling, and I think it's just very cool. I think it's such a unique prospect to put all of this in one book so that it's easy to transport. I can't believe that nobody has done it until then, so it's very cool. The next page here is another watery area with a bridge. Now if you wanted to, I suppose you could buy two of these books and combine these landscapes into one, which would be pretty cool as well. Now we have a roadside here and a foresty campsite. And again, just as an example, you could use this by itself here. And I think that would be a pretty good map in of itself. And I think for quick encounters and campsite scuffles, that might be a good way to do things. Here we have some ruins. They look very ruined. The edge of a once castle brought down by some opposing force perhaps and left to its ruin. We have some more interior castle here. Again, you could use one side and not the other if you wish, or if you had some paper or dark colored paper, you could cover up one side and reveal it as you go. And over here we have a cliffside entryway, or I should say a cave entrance here, and a roadside. This is definitely one I would consider using a roadside encounter on one side, and then perhaps the cave entrance by itself as a different encounter. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I like that. Again, you get a lot of ideas from these, which I quite like. A lot of ideas can flow from these. It's like looking through the monster manual, if you will, looking for ideas for encounters. You can get some ideas just for looking at scenarios here. We have a snowy expanse here and another cave entrance, if you will, to this side. You could use just this side or the other. That's the cool thing about this, is versatility. You have some interior caves here, which goes along well with the caves entrances you had earlier. Here you have some more cave interiors. These ones are a bit more compact with more kind of narrow corridors in between. I like that. Here you have what looks to be a graveyard. The interior here of a town that is perhaps haunted, if you will. We have various pieces of scenery here, and I will show later in this review adding scenery to this map and what that looks like as well. And again, you can get different sizes of maps like this that they sell, and they also sell lots of other different things like encounter books to come up with ideas for encounters from Loke BattleMats as well. They're very cool. Here we have the halls of a noble quarter, if you will, or perhaps an area for an extravagant dance. I think this is a nice space. It's very big, so that's pretty cool. Could be a castle interior or a chessboard. We have a puzzle of some sort here, and then we have a pit. I actually quite like this large pit here. I could see this being used by itself as like maybe an arena or the inside of a trap. I quite like that. You could put, so for like a coliseum, if you will, you could put spectators around the outside and then have your combatants fight in the middle. I like that. That's a nice design there for maybe a temple fighting pit. Quite like it. So, we also have some marble flooring here with a summoning circle or a ritual circle of some kind here. I like that. We have some more floored interiors here with crossways or corridors in between. We have some more of that type of scenery here, which could link up with other pieces. If you had another book, or even one of the other size books, you can link these up as well, or use them individually. This looks like maybe this was like perhaps a stable or some rooms inside of a castle. And this is a area with columns in between, so a bit of places for characters to hide. We have a throne room right here. I like that. So perhaps a castle, that would be a pretty cool location to meet those in charge. Here we have some more kind of decrepit, more nasty areas here. This could be a temple, or this could be a sewer. So things like that. On this area here, it looks like we have a docks. That's a pretty good location. An area where perhaps some evil bandits are hiding out. Or perhaps you could use this as a location for your party to travel when they take ship fare outside of their location. The interior of either a large storage area, or perhaps you could use this side here by itself as an inn. I could see that. I could see that being an inn. But mostly this looks like a warehouse. And you could use just this section in of itself for just some regular flooring and draw on it if you wanted to. We have some more what looks like large sewers with the watery areas between these bridges in between. Here we have some buildings, and you could cover these. I know that Loke BattleMats also does clings, which can be added to BattleMats, and they do things like buildings. You could add roofs to these or connect to them. It's quite cool. So this is the interior of a town, and if you wanted to cover these up again with even with card, you could do that so that they can't see inside. That is your players. Here we have the main part of a town square, perhaps the shopping area where fresh goods are sold. And here's a blank one for just random encounters as well. Town square-esque. Now here we have some covered roofs. So this is a map that could be used for the interior of a city. I like that. Just for some random street encounters, or just as a visual aid for your characters as they're moving around a city, to just put them on there to get them into the feel that they are in an urban environment. I have a beach here with some water. That's cool, I like that. If you were to escape from a overturned ship, your party could end up here. That's pretty cool. Now going from one watery environment to a fiery environment, this could well be the plane of fire. Quite like that. Lots of lava around, or liquid hot magma. Here we have a desert oasis proper. So we have a body of water here, leading into the mouth of a cave perhaps. And also a desert section here with cracked, barren landscape. And then a simple blank battle map for you to draw upon. So I think this would be a good example for me to show the effect of drawing onto this. So let's give that a go. Let's try and put some pen to this. If we were to, say, draw onto this, you could then make your own environment, let's say, where your party could enter. And there you have, let's say, a cave section where there is some stalagmites or stalactites lying around, blocking some areas. And it's a very narrow section. And then you could also have in the middle perhaps a section of fiery expanse or lava, and then this would be a very easy way to make a battle map on the fly, and then it does dry erase, of course, which is very handy. So there's that. So that's pretty cool. So let's show some encounters on this map and how they might look. So here's the throne room. I did really like the look of this. You could use a lot of things to save some space. For example, you could use these tokens from Dungeons and Dragons. These are just flat tokens. If your group was to use tokens, then you could save a lot of space that way. And these fit in their spaces exactly. And that would be an easy way to tell where everything is. Your bad guys would start off where they would start off on the other side. So this would be a very good, pretty much bare bones way to have your encounter run. This would allow you to essentially take a very small amount of items into a game, and you would be good to go with that. You could set up all of your guards and your bad guys and your players, and then have very little taken with you to wherever you are headed to go. Now the only problem I have with these tokens is that they're kind of hard to see from a 3D perspective. It's great if everyone can see down to the battle map, that is fine, but for the most part I prefer to use things like Pathfinder Pawns. So we will take a look at that, and we'll also have a look at using some scenery on this map as well. Alright, so just to show some Pathfinder Pawns, they are by Paizo, and they're great because they also can be flat. You take them off their stands, and they are very easily packable, and you can save a lot of space like that as well. And the good thing about these is that you can still see them from afar, which really helps. The thing I would recommend with Pathfinder Pawns really is to label the stands for front facing, and so that it's more easy to track your HP, for example, of your monsters. So here's a very easy encounter with just a couple of goblins and your party. Nothing really fancy going on with some Pathfinder Pawns. And again, I think Pathfinder Pawns are a good shout for this if you were on the go, because you can take these off the stands and they save a lot of space that way. But for a more dynamic look. We'll have a look at just an easy setup here with a player, couple of monsters, and we'll add some scenery to this scene and see what that looks like. So what I'm going to use here, I think, is some Warhammer terrain. This is some resin terrain of a Chaos style temple, if you will. And we'll just throw some of this on the map randomly and see how it turns out. And this is one of the good things about these type of maps. You can just sort of mess around with them and quite easily make a scene and add some scenery, and it's pretty good looking for not having to take a lot of stuff with you. So here I'm just throwing a couple of pieces of scenery onto the map, and you can see that that has really sort of changed the dynamic of this situation. So I quite like that. Just adding some random pieces of scenery to this map. You could really have a scene play out where your heroes come up against these creatures and have to conquer them to proceed. So there's just an example of what a battle map could look like with just a little bit of scenery applied to it to flesh it out a little bit. You could also use things like columns or trees. Anything that's really easy to transport I think would be a good idea to accompany this book of battle maps. And I would recommend taking things you don't mind getting roughed up, like pre-painted minis. If you're really old school, you could take things like this from the old D&D sets, but then this being a black dragon doesn't quite represent the size that it should be. I think that Pathfinder Pawns are probably a good shout to go with this because of how compact and how transportable they are, but you can use anything you want. So overall, I think this is a really cool addition to any Dungeon Master who's on the go. I don't think it's a replacement for your battle maps or whatever you would use if you draw them yourself or what have you, but I do think this is going to make random encounters and things like that a lot easier, and I think this is an amazing product. So there you go, Loke battle maps, giant book of battle maps for role-playing games. So there you have it. Thank you for watching, thank you for checking out this video, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Thank you for being awesome. I've been MVL, and I will catch you next time.